Hello everyone, and welcome to this drop-in session on how to create a course in Brightspace. This session is meant for people who are absolutely new to Brightspace, so if you're already experienced in creating courses in Brightspace, it could serve as a refresher or just a chance to contribute to the discussion. Now, the Brightspace course that we're going to be looking at is in a training instance that I use for testing things. So your Brightspace site may look slightly different or very different. What they'll all have in common is that you'll have a logo up here, probably your organization's logo. The links in the nav bar here, which the links themselves might differ, but that's where you find them. And you'll have this course selector here, the grid or the waffle icon here. And if I click on that, I can see all of the courses that I have permission to access. So to access the course content, you might have a link directly in the nav bar. Directly in the nav bar here. I've nested mine under the list for course materials. And if I click on the content, I can see a completely empty shell course. So the view that we're looking at now is what we call the content experience. There is another view of the course, which we'll look at later, which is called lessons or the new content experience. So depending on your settings, you'll see one or the other, and you might have the ability to change between the two. In the menu on the left-hand side of the page, I can see overview, bookmarks, course schedule, and the table of contents. So the overview is where I welcome students and I can tell them the purpose of the course and what I want them to learn. So firstly, let's type a welcome message here. Keep it simple. And I'm prompted there to add an attachment. Now this could be a further bit of information to provide some context around the overview of the course. For me, what I'm going to do here is add an attachment that is the course syllabus. So to do that, what I've got is I'm going to run with a course that I've created offline, and I'll show it here in a Windows Explorer file structure. So this is an example physics course, starting with an introduction and then some modules that relate to physics. I'm going to click into the introduction where I can find some files that I've associated to this course. I'll take the course syllabus, I'll drag and drop it into Brightspace like that. And like many of us, I am working from my home internet connection, so I'm glad that worked pretty quickly. So other items along the left-hand side menu, as well as overview, you have bookmarks. Now this is really used by students more so than teachers or instructors. And this is about bookmarking items of content that they want to refer back to quickly. There's a course schedule, and the course schedule builds itself according to due dates, which you set for content as you go, and you can add items to that manually. So typically you'd review that at the end of preparing the course. And then we've got table of contents here. I'll click on table of contents. There's the option now to import a course. And if I click on that, I can copy an existing course. That is one that already exists somewhere else in Brightspace, or I can import a course package, for example, one that's been built elsewhere and I want to bring in. But for today, we're going to build something from all that offline content that I have in the Windows Explorer menu. So I'm going to switch back to that folder on my desktop. And what I want to do in the table of contents is to start to replicate this folder structure in Brightspace. So each of these folders contains something that I want to show my students or an action that I want them to take. So now switching back to Brightspace, we're going to add introduction, energy and momentum, and gravity, just the first couple here. And I can do that by clicking on this link to add a module. Now it was energy and momentum. So because I moved away, it saved the work that I've done so far, and I can go back and edit the title. You can do this at any time by clicking on this arrow here. And let's add a third one, which was gravity. Okay, so at the moment I've created the basic structure of the course. I haven't added anything into here. So let's go to the introduction. Now there are a few different ways to get the course content into Brightspace. Using this button, upload and create. So I'm going to start with uploading a file, which is one that I've already got, again, in that Windows Explorer. So I can navigate to that either by clicking on this upload button and finding it, or probably more simply, dragging and dropping it from here. And adding it like so. Another option is just to create the file directly in Brightspace. And if I click on this option to create a file, I see what looks like a word processor. So for anybody that's familiar with Microsoft Word, this type of view is probably quite familiar. So some of the options along the top bar here, this one is Insert Stuff, which gives me the option to link to external content. So I can insert stuff that's on my computer or in external learning resources like YouTube, add a video from ePortfolio and some of the other tools. I'll close out of that for now. This button allows me to insert an image. And this quick links to the other learning tools that exist within Brightspace. So assignments, the calendar, the discussions tool, the portfolio, and you can also add third-party learning tools and link to those that are supported through here. Now, for this course, I could just start typing away. So I'm going to copy the same introductory content that I have in my Microsoft Word document. I'm just going to copy this and simply paste it into here in Brightspace. And you'll notice that all of the formatting that existed in the Word document has been maintained. So you don't have to go back and rebuild the document. Along the top, if there is anything that you want to change, you can do that using the formatting here. And if I click on this button, the three dots over on the right-hand side to show all components, there are some more advanced options, for example, to add a table or a mathematical formula. So you can get to those through there. Font options. So these are the system options. Arial is the default and recommended. And the font size, let's show you how this looks, can go up to the option 7 like that. Now we have some templates that are available to you that are either in your Brightspace instance already now, or you can get them from our community. This will replace any existing content that I've put in. But as you can see, it's pre-built and it lists a lot of other, it already has a lot of formatting and structure for a course that suits different parts of your teaching structure. So a course module or question from Gay Cameron, what is the style, font and size in the site that's equal to Arial? So, okay. This, for an example, I believe is 10 or 12. That's 10, 12, oh, maybe one more. 14, there we go. So I'd encourage you to have a look at, if you're bringing in content from elsewhere that's pre-built, as I say, it will just maintain whatever formatting that you've got now. If you have, if you're building something from scratch, then if it looks nice here, it will be presented in absolutely the same way to the audience. Okay, now I'm going to close back out of this file and save it. Okay, and you can see up here, there are what we call breadcrumbs, which help you to navigate to the content. Now that content's created, I can click on the table of contents here to go back to that view that we're in previously. In terms of what you want to put in an introduction, this is really where you should list the reasons that the student or learner should review the content. I've shown a couple of ways that the course content can be added in. Now I want to cover how to put this content into some sort of meaningful order. So we've got the content topics in the table of contents here: introduction, energy and momentum, gravity. Now I want to add some submodules to these, which I can do by simply typing them out here. So for energy and momentum, I want to be going through the different types of energy as individual topics. I'll type a couple of examples here. And I can see that it's building them out into a list, but it's listing them as their own modules. If I want to move them to become submodules, what I would do is hover over these little dots on the left-hand side and simply drag them over the module that I want to add them to. And put them in there. Now, if I click on here, I can see that they're slightly inset. So this is where you can add different submodules to your course content and start to build out layers. Now, we typically recommend don't go more than, say, 3 layers deep in terms of creating a structure for your course, because that's the level that students are able to navigate and easily find, and they're not going to skip over things that are nested too deep in this sort of module structure. Okay, and if I want to change the order of these, I can drag them around like that. And if you see the thin blue line, that indicates that it's going to move. If I click into these content items, I can see that there are a few options. So under potential, I can see that add dates and restrictions. Clicking on that, I can add a start date, a due date, and an end date for the content, as well as some release conditions. So the start date is the date when the content becomes available to the student. If a student logs in before this, they won't see that content item in Brightspace. The due date, typically associated with assignments, quizzes, work to be submitted, will be the date when that content is due, and the end date is the date where the content item is blocked from further student access. Just below that, the release conditions. Now, I want to make it so that I can be sure that my students are looking at all the important bits of content in the course. So to do that, I can create a release condition so that it only releases this piece of content once somebody has been through a previous piece of content. And I'll create a release condition. There are quite a number of options for this, but the one I want now is that the student has previously visited the content topic that I've created for the introduction. So that is to say, nobody can see this item until they've been through the introduction. You can add more than one release condition, and then you can choose whether or not just one of those conditions needs to be met or whether they all have to be met, like that. And once that's done, there's a prompt for the teacher or the instructor to know that there is a condition there. Next, I'd like to add a description, which is a description for the student to understand why this module is important and why they need to go through it. And I could drag and drop some more content in there. It's the same workflow that we've already had a look at previously. Anyway, if I want to go back to a simplified list of the top tier of modules, I'll click on Table of Contents. Just one more thing I'd like to do is create an assignment that relates to this module. So if I click on Upload and Create, I can see the list of items and links to other things that I can bring in to this module. And I'll select from this list, New Assignment. I can choose the type of assignment and build this all out from here rather than needing to go to the assignment tool. I can choose, is it a file submission? That is, the student needs to take the action of uploading something or typing in Brightspace, observed in person, submitted on paper, or submitted as text. I'll just save that. And return to the table of contents. Okay, so this is all fine. That's basically the structure that you would use to build out a course from scratch. But how does it look for a student? Oh, to upload a file, it is organizational administrative setting. It's typically 1 gigabyte. All right, so as I'm viewing things as a teacher, what I'd like to be able to understand is how would it appear to a student. I'm going to click on my name in the profile in the top right hand corner of the screen and view it as a student. So to get into the course content, same thing here, only now you'll notice everything's locked down because a student shouldn't be able to edit the options. Now, you'll remember I created a release condition for the item under the potential energy, and it only appears for a student if they've been through the introduction. So let's have a quick look at the introduction now. I'll read through this, return to the table of contents. You'll see a tick to see that the item has been reviewed. And then the release condition has been met. So the topic appears here. When you're thinking about designing the course for different levels of students, you could set in release conditions that are based on a certain grade being met. So if they score below a certain percentage in a test, you might want to release some remedial content, and if they score above a certain percentage, you can add some more advanced content in there. Okay, now to return to the instructor view, I'll simply go to the profile and close this. So this Brightspace instance is set up so that I've got the option to change over to the lessons view, which I'll do now through this little drop-down arrow in the top right. And your Brightspace instance might already look like this when you access course content. The lessons view or the new content experience is simply another way of looking at the content that's been created in the course. Okay, so under these options, I'll see everything that I've already created listed as units rather than modules. So the point of the lessons view is it's designed to present a cleaner and simpler way to view the same content. There's a little bit more focus on learner outcomes, and you can add the content in the same way directly under these units. One thing to note about content that's created in the lessons view is that it defaults to not being visible to students. So there's a toggle here, like that, and anything that you create in lessons will show like this. So you can see in the menu on the left that there's the eye with the line through it, indicating that the item is hidden from students. This gives the instructor a safe way of building out a course that students might already have access to, and then toggling the content on once they're happy for the students to see it. Now, as the teacher or instructor, I'd like to be able to see where my students are in the course. I'm going to turn this off for now. There's a couple of different ways to do this. At an item level, firstly, I'm going to go into a specific item. And if I scroll down to the end, I can see that there are 3 tabs here to provide details of the activity, the learning objectives, which you can add for the item here, and a completion summary. So in the completion summary, I'll be able to see what my students have accessed and how long they've spent in the content. So it is possible to know from here at an individual item level how much time students have spent reviewing. So if they've only been in the content for a couple of seconds, chances are they haven't reviewed it all that thoroughly. Back to my content list, and the last thing that I'd want to show in here is the link to class progress, which is a tool that I'd strongly recommend that everybody uses to give an overview at a student level or class level. And this will provide a list of all of the students who are enrolled in the course, their status in reviewing the content, I'm currently showing objectives which have been assigned for that student, the logins, and their grades so far. Now, I can adjust these headings by clicking on the settings cog here and choosing from other options that I might have permission to see. So if I want a grade performance summary, I can swap this out here. Okay, and that is it. That's the quick overview of how to build a course in Brightspace.